Hi all, Ben in for East West. Welcome to video 10 in the Python for Finance series. So same thing as we always start with here, just in our Python codes folder, utilities, and we'll start a new project. And today we're going to touch on loops and what loops are. So let me go ahead and fill out the opening sections of the code. Okay, so we've just started off here. We're just going to do some basic looping, just to have a look at how that works, and then we're just going to also combine some of the other things that we've done thus far into this little program. And in this program, we're going to also look at the MP or NumPy.where function, because that'll come in handy. And we're going to try to write a program to answer the question, how many days did the S&P 500 spend below the X period? So, you know, the 20-day, the 50-day, the 200-day, whatever period you want, moving average in 2022. Okay, so we've run this cell and we need a new one. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set a variable, and we're going to set, actually what we'll do is we won't set a variable, we'll set the MA period, and we'll do that via a variable. So we'll make a variable here called period, and we'll make that equal to, for this instance, we'll make that equal to 20. Okay, so the next thing we got to do is just a simple download the data. Now, as I'm doing this, we'll just call this data frame. Something to consider here is that if we want to get the moving average for every day in 2022, that means we're going to have to actually start our data frame before then, because if we only download the data for 2022, then it's not going to be able to work out. If you want the 200-day moving average, well, you need 200 days of data before you start, because, you know, obviously it needs 200 days to work out the average of those first 200 days before it rolls on. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to go, and there will be a shorter way around this, but I'm just trying to break this all down into big parts so you can sort of see how it all goes together. So I'm going to give it a start date here of actually 2021-01-01. So I'm going to actually get it to download 2 years of data here. And I've put my little hat outside where I need it. And I've put YD, not YF. I'm off to a flyer. Okay, so that's downloaded. So next what we want to do is we want to introduce, let's just clean this up a little bit. So first things first, I'll just actually put these in the right cells, and now I'm going to just add a column for the moving average. So we're just going to say moving average, and then we're going to do it the same way that we have been doing it, ta.trend. We're just going to do the simple moving average, SMA underscore indicator, and then we need to tell it we want the average of the close, and as the window is going to equal period. Okay, so period is the variable that we set here, and so that will just read that as 20. So if we run this cell, whoops, I've actually put an equal sign there where I shouldn't, and now that's done. So if we just have a look at the tail of the data frame, we can see here that the moving average column is in. That is good. We can get rid of that. We know it's there. So next we're going to use the MPWhere function. So we're going to add a column for price position, i.e. was the market above, was the close above the moving average, or was it below? So the way we do that is we have to add a column. So df dot, let's just call it position. Okay, now this is where we go mp for numpy dot wh dot where. Okay, then if we just open a bracket, now this can almost be thought of as like an if statement in Excel, very basically. So what we want to say is MPWhere. So where df dot close, so where the close is less than df dot MA, so where the close is less than the moving average, if that's true, we want it to be, pardon me, we want it to be below, and because we're giving it a text, we have to put it in commas, and then if not, we want it to be above. Okay, so MPWhere, where the close is under the MA, then make the column equal to below, and if it's not, i.e. the close is above the MA, we'll make it above. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. Like I said, it's just Python's way of doing a basic Excel if statement. Okay, so that's in. So now if we look at our data frame, now we've got a new position, and you can see here moving average was 39.43 and the market closed at 38.44, which is below, so that is correct. That's what we want. That is all working fine. Okay, so now we only wanted 2022, but now that we've got 2021 and 2022's information there, we know that when we go to, unless you're looking for, there's 252 trading days set in a standard year. So unless you want a moving average period that's greater than 252, 1 year before is fine. It's actually more than enough. But what we want to do is we only want 2022's data. We don't want 2021's data, but we do want the moving averages on the first day of 2022. So there's probably a lot of different ways you can do this. This is a very simple way to do it. If you're watching this and saying, oh, come on, this isn't the way to show people how to do it, well, then you're too advanced for this video. Go and find another course. This is for people who don't know anything about it. I only know a little bit about it. This is how I would do it because it's very simple. This is how I demonstrate to do it. So let's just say select the 2022 data. Okay, so we can just say the data frame that we've created, we're going to rework that. You could make a new data frame, but I'm just going to say DF. Now remember the indexing that we were looking at. Let's just quickly whack a cell in here and just go df.head. Remember the indexing is the date. Okay, so we're just going to call up the dates that we want. Now we know that, in fact, if we just bring up this as tail instead of head, we can see that the last day is the 23rd of December 2022. So if we bring up, we're just going to reference the actual indexes. So we're not resetting them into numbers. We're just going to use the date. So we know we want 2022 0101. We know that's, oh, pardon me, 0101. So we know that's where we want to start, and we want to go all the way through to, so we put the colon in there, 2022 12 23. Okay, so I've just done it this way so it's easy to see that we're just trying to get Python to trim the data frame down to show only the dates that we want. So let's run that. Problem there. And why is there a problem there? Because there's no apostrophe there. See, all these little typos that go in is what just creates these little errors. You just fix them up, and then the program can deal with it. Now, df.head. Okay, now we're starting on the right day. We're starting on the 3rd of January, which was the first day that the exchange was open. But importantly, we've got the moving average for that day, the 20-period moving average, which we've declared here, and we know what the position was above or below the moving average. Now, this is a little bit of a long-winded way to do it. However, let's just now look at setting up some loops. So you could do this via just appending to a new data frame, but what we're going to do in this example is we're just going to append to a new list that we looked at the last time. So one thing we want to know, one thing we'll need to know, is how many days are we dealing with here? Because if we're looking at how many days out of our data frame that we had above and below, well, first thing we need to know is how many days have we got in total. So the way we do that is we can ask Python to tell us the length of the data frame. Okay, now it'll actually, when we just go df and run that, it actually tells us at the bottom that we've got 247 rows. But another way to do that is to go len, as in length, and then just length of the data frame, and that will also tell us that we've got 247 entries, say for instance. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to set up a simple loop. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do is we want to create a list for the loop to pass information to. So we can actually just set up a blank list like this, below equals that. Okay, now if we call that list, there's just nothing in there because it's empty. All right, but we want it empty because we want the loop to start putting new entries in there. So you can remember back that we talked about for I. So here we need to do a for loop. So for I in range, open bracket, the length of the data frame. So at the end of that, we put a colon. So what we're saying is here is that for I, for each iteration, for each line in a range that is the length of the entire data frame, this is what I want you to do. Okay. Now, when you hit enter after putting in that, you'll see that it's indented because this is almost like a sub-program. Okay. So what we're going to say is we're going to actually use an if statement here. So we're going to say if df.position dot, now here we've got to put in iloc, I, okay, in square brackets. If in df position for the actual row that we're checking, so iloc I, for I, so it's like, okay, for the first one, if this particular thing, or particular column value, I should say, equals. Now, when you put equals in Python, you've got to put double equals. So if that equals below, then we've got to put another column, because what we're saying is if this is true, this is what I want you to do. We have to reference the list below. Remember that list that we've set up here? So we've got to say below. Then we've got to say append. Okay, and then what do we want to append? We want to append I. Okay, we want to append that iteration. We want to append that row. And that's it. For I, for the row, in the range of the length of the data frame, so basically for every entry in this data frame, I want you to check row by row if position is equal to below. Okay, I want you to take this row and I want you to stick it into this blank list. Okay, that's all we're doing. That's it. That's it. That's a basic loop. Okay, and once you've done that, go and check the next one. Once you've done that, go and check the next one and go through the whole thing. Okay, and now that's done. Now, if we then call up the list below, what it is now doing is giving us which rows are coming up as below. Okay, so everything there is got an entry here that says below. Okay, because we've looped through the entire data frame and it's gone all the way through and found all the times where it's below. Okay, right, so what do we do next? Well, now we can check the length of below. Rather than checking the length of the data frame, how many entries are there in that list? There's 143 entries in that list. Okay, so now let's just to tidy all this up, now let's assign some lengths to variables. Okay, variables. So let's say total days. So total days that we're looking at, well, what does that equal to? That equals the length of the data frame. And let's say we also want to know the below days, and that equals the length of the list called below. Okay, so it's as simple as that. Now we can print out total days, and we can print out below days. Okay, 247 and 143. So we know out of the 247 days that we're looking at, the S&P spent 143 of those days below the 20-day moving average. Quite a bearish year. So once again, we could quickly check the percentage, just to work out something like that. Percent below, something very simple, would equal. Now we can use our variable below days because we know that's got a number. We can divide that by the total days, right? Total days, and then if we just times that by 100, and then we ask this to print out percent below, we know that we spent 57.8% of the year below the 20-day moving average. So that seemed like quite a long-winded way to do it, and I did do it specifically and purposely in a long-winded way to show you the steps that you can go through. But the difference between like just sort of normal average beginner level coding like I pretty much do and what I'm showing you, and someone who's a good coder, is they can get the program to spit out exactly the same result using a lot less lines of code. They can code much more efficiently. So I'll just quickly show you how you might do this much more efficiently. So I'll just whiz through this. So let's make a new data frame. Let's go df2 equals df dot copy. So we're just going to take a copy. So we're not going to play with the original data frame. We're just going to do that. And then what are we going to do next? All we're going to do here is we're going to then say, we're going to make a very simple line here. We're going to say df2. So we just want to change what's in this data frame, and all we want to see is df2, then square bracket, and then if we just put in df2 dot position, then what we can say here is does not equal. So we put in exclamation mark equal. That is basically code speak for does not equal above. So we're just saying here, can you please make a data frame that only shows me all the entries where position does not equal above, i.e. it equals below. Okay, and there it is. Same thing, 143 rows. We got 143 up here. So you can see how in these two lines of code we achieve the same result as going through this looping procedure. Okay, so that's how like you would code exactly the same result, but with a lot less trouble. Now, so why did I not do that in the first place? Because I just wanted to show you how a simple loop might work, because we are going to use these much more as we go forward. So that's it for loops. There's just a couple of little things in there just for your sorry, one last thing I'll show you is this is why we use variables, because now, say for instance, we want to know the 50-day period. So let's just now restart and run all. But this time we're going to check the 50-day period. Okay, and that's all done. So we can see here that we actually spent 63.96% or 158 days below the 50-day moving average. So hopefully that you see that, and that just sort of whets your appetite, gets you thinking a little bit about some other things that you might want to look at in terms of indexes or stocks. So that's a little bit of a longer video, this one, but we are going to use for loops. So sometimes they can be a little bit difficult to wrap your head around, but I just wanted to give you a simple example here of how we just ask the data frame for each row, please check if this condition is true. If it is, we'll whack it in this list, and then we'll know how many times that has occurred. Or you can just do it this way into a data frame. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.